When I was 5 years old, my parents signed me up for my first summer camp, and it wasn't the summer camp that you would think of hiking and swimming and all those outdoor activities, but instead it was a gymnastics camp. I was always a high-energy kid, doing handstands and rolls all around my house, so it was only fitting. What I didn't know was my attendance to that camp 12 years ago propelled me directly into a sport that would essentially become my life from then on. I want you to think of what comes to mind when I say the word gymnastics. For me, when I first heard it, I imagined aimless flips on the equipment, those girls that I saw on TV at the Summer Olympics with shiny medals hanging around their necks, and a time where I could have fun with my new gymnastics friends. What I didn't realize I was getting myself into was a sport so full of abuse and trauma that was overlooked by businesses and was unchanging. I didn't realize the cycle of horrors that every gymnast was subjected to that created an unhealthy relationship with sports. To sum it up, gymnastics is a sport about perfection. It's not like other sports where you learn to work with your teammates and try and figure out the best play that will get you through a game. It's completely individual. You go to practice and you do your routines and your skills over and over again until you get it just right, until it's time to go to competition, where you stand up in front of a panel of judges and you perform your routine for them to get a score that defines you for the rest of the meet. You get one chance. And so due to this, many gymnasts become perfectionists, myself included. Gymnasts will spend 20 to 35 hours at practice each week trying to do these skills over and over again and getting yelled at by their coaches if something looks wrong and then forced to do it over and over again. Gymnasts' minds are basically programmed to overanalyze their own bodies, which is only good to an extent. Gymnasts will begin to compare themselves to others and stereotype themselves. If you're short, this is the sport for you, but if you're too tall, maybe you should think of something else. It creates a certain pressure to achieve the right body type, most of which comes from coaches. Body weight is a really big topic in gymnastics. Coaches make gymnasts think that if they weigh too much or they're overweight, they will look bad in their leotards and they won't do as well as other gymnasts would. They sentence their gymnasts to laps around the parking lot for hours and at times hours of conditioning at the end of practice to shave those pounds off. This running makes athletes self-conscious about their weight, how they look, and they become scared of their coaches. When I was 9 years old, I was training on bars with some of my teammates, and one of my teammates couldn't get her skills to look very good. She was having a really off day, and my coach came up to us and said, "Have you been eating too much ice cream? You look like a watermelon." She was 9 years old and 95 pounds. This same girl, who's now 17, still struggles with body image issues and eating the right food proportions, and this comment has echoed through her ears, and comments like these can echo through ears of other gymnasts for years to come. Coaches will berate their athletes for their shortcomings, and this type of coaching is abusive, derogatory, and cruel. A 2019 NCAA report found that upwards of 51% of gymnasts experience disordered eating, which is likely a result from the pressure from their coaches to be lean and presentable. Undernourishment, especially in sports, can be dangerous because it leads to fatigue, injuries, and an unhealthy relationship with food. This unsafe environment is approved by coaches when they tell their gymnasts they need to run or shed a few pounds. Jamie Dancher, a member of the 2000 Olympic team, claims that one time she had the flu and she was out of practice for a few weeks. After she came back, she had lost a total of 6 pounds, and her coach said to her that she needed to figure out how to keep these pounds off. In my experience, I was never weighed or sentenced to laps around the parking lot to lose weight, but I was told that pizza was not something good to eat for dinner. I was told to refrain from snacks, and dessert was something that I should not eat. I am forever grateful that I was not subjected to the extent of abusive coaching that people like Jamie Dancher were, but I do look at food differently than I used to, and there's a guilt factor involved with eating after my time in gymnastics. This type of abuse is widely known, and it has been brought to the attention of parents and many figures of authority, yet it hasn't changed. It sends a message that skinny and damaged athletes that win first place are better than happy and healthy ones that win third. In my 12 years of gymnastics, I reached level 9 out of 10. I There were a few years that I repeated levels due to having injuries or simply not making the skills. And trust me, I've had my fair share of injuries. In the span of a single year, I sprained my ankle twice and fractured my fibula almost to the point where I needed surgery. I also have a herniated disc in my back that I've been dealing with since I was 11 years old. I never competed at the elite level. The elite girls are the ones that you see on TV training to compete at the Olympics. The pressure on these girls increases tenfold as they are at this level, as well as injuries, because it comes with more repetition, harder skills, and longer hours in the gym. These gymnasts are so set in their path and dreams of trying to make the Olympic team that they become tolerant of abuse and injuries. And as crazy as this sounds, coaches don't allow for injuries at this level. If a gymnast claims to be injured, they get heavily reprimanded, they get screamed at, and they're forced to continue to practice and compete on these ailments, adding further damage to their bodies. Jamie Gancher, the athlete I mentioned before, claimed that at one point in her career she had to practice and compete on bruised heels so bad she couldn't walk, multiple broken toes, and a fractured back. Gymnasts are brainwashed to believe that this is what it takes to be the best in the world. This is the sacrifice that they have to make. They believe that they are meant to be broken down and bruised, and that their bodies are meant to be like this. Gymnasts compete on dislocations, broken, fractured bones, and tears and tendons, yet they have to act like there's nothing wrong with them. Many people struggle from day to day to function when they have a broken bone, but gymnasts are expected to flip, twist, and land perfectly on them. Moira Hernandez, a member of the 2016 Olympic team, was in a situation just like this, which she eventually detailed on her Instagram. She was abused by her coach, Maggie Haney, and she was brave enough to report this to USA Gymnastics and her mother, and it took 4 years for her coach to be punished for her actions. That's 1,460 more days that Haney was allowed to abuse Lori and many other gymnasts. So the question is, why are coaches like Maggie Haney able to do this to their gymnasts? Why are other coaches just like her allowed to do this without being reprimanded? The problem with professional athletics is that they care more about their image and the money they're making than the safety and well-being of their gymnasts. Businesses are notified of abuse going on nationwide in their member gyms, yet they haven't done anything about it, and they've refrained from doing anything about it until recently. I remember a few years ago at practice, we had to go through a sort of training on something called safe sport. It changed the kind of environment we worked out in, and we weren't allowed to be alone with any coaches, any judges, any figures of authority, basically any adults. It was implemented in 2017, less than a year after Larry Nassar was charged with sexual abuse of hundreds of gymnasts. This is him. For those who don't know the story, he was an athletic trainer at Michigan State University and was well trusted by many different athletes and USA Gymnastics. He worked alongside John Goodert, another coach who physically and mentally abused a bunch of gymnasts. Nassar did unspeakable things to the girls that went to him for help, the girls that trusted him when they were injured, because they were forced to compete and practice on these injuries, as I mentioned before, and they trusted Nassar to help them, and he did nothing but wrong things. People eventually did come forward and report Nassar's abuse, but they were silenced by the CEO and president of USA Gymnastics, Steve Penny. Steve Penny went as far as hiring a team of FBI agents to keep the situation under wraps and hide it from the public. And so it seems that coaches and these people have thrown out their morals, and they don't care about what's happening in reality. They only care about what they look like to the world. They want to show other countries that we're the best in the world, and there's nothing going on with us, there's nothing wrong, when all these things are happening on the inside. It proves that image is more important than safety. I'm sure by now you've noticed this medal hanging around my neck. This medal was the last medal I ever earned as a competitive gymnast. It represents to me the sacrifices, injuries, and experiences that I've gone through as a gymnast. I keep it on display in my room as a reminder of what I've been through, but also as a reminder of what other athletes have been through as well. The truth of the matter is that nothing's going to change if athletes don't take a stand for themselves. No matter what sport, it's important that we need to speak up and talk when we experience something that's cruel or demeaning. Businesses only care about themselves, but athletes need to care about themselves as well. Thank you.